we shall not be moved. And we say we won't pay for killing, we shall not be moved. We won't pay for killing, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved.
I'm Freddie Wind River, and I'm here because I'm a nurse and a mother. And the death and suffering that we have brought on innocent people is just unbelievable to me. And I don't ever again want my country to go to war. And therefore I haven't paid my federal taxes for years and years. And I hope there'll be some people here today who will decide to withhold their taxes only also. It's the only way many of us can really put ourselves out there to make a difference.
I've always been taught that killing was wrong and that helping other people was the right thing to do. And when most of our tax money is going towards death and destruction, and people can't get the education, the health care, housing, food that they need, something's wrong. And I'm glad that so many of you are here to help change the situation around.
There is no security except a collective security. We sometimes get the idea that I can't do this because I need to be secure. I need to have security for my children. I need to have there isn't any until the world becomes more secure. And that's going to be with each of us. No government is going to decree that. None whatever. And I just hope we will all remember that some people here who are risking arrest have children. And I know that's very hard. But we don't support our own children by supplying the arms to kill other people's children.
Three, two, one. Stop testing. 3, 2, 1. Stop nuclear testing. How's the sound, person? Have we stopped nuclear testing? All right. Have we stopped injecting physically challenged and mentally challenged individuals with plutonium? I thought Dr. Mengele had died years ago. Okay, I'm wrong. I'm not the Pope. Jeez. Hi, I'm not the Pope. I'm Jose. I want to welcome you to Politically Correct Cooking, a show that radiates from the capital city of the most powerful nation in the history of the world. Strike that. The most powerful nation in the history of the solar system. And our guest tonight had nothing to do with making the USA #1. Please welcome Carol, War Tax Resister. Carol, come on down.
How you doing, Jose?
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Glad you can make it on down.
Sure. Glad to be here.
War Tax Resister. That's pretty interesting. Is that like on your resume and stuff? Or?
Oh, no. Well, sometimes just in the fine print. I'll put it in there. Only for appropriate organizations who would approve of such a thing. So.
Okay. Well, before we start talking about war tax resistance, I am looking at the food that we have here. I'm looking at a big pile of condiments in excess packaging. What's going on here?
Well, we're going to be, in your honor, we're going to be making a Mexican casserole, kind of a layered Mexican lasagna, and you have the option of, purchasing a can of enchilada sauce or taco sauce, but since I do go to fast food places every once in a while, I tend to accumulate these taco sauce packets, so we're going to move those along and include those in the casserole.
So, well, thank you for having this Mexican meal in my honor, although I am Panamanian, but that's okay.
Oh.
Also, I guess some major corporate entity is unwittingly sponsoring our show.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm proud of that fact.
Well, we want to thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
Okay.
Well, before we start talking about war tax resistance, what do you want me to do?
Well, the first thing we have to do, why don't you, there's some scissors, you can start opening those and emptying them into the bowl.
Okay.
I'll chop the green pepper.
Okay.
What we're going to do is saute green pepper, and then we have already cut some onion up, so we're going to be doing a sauteed vegetable thing. You have an option if you want to do more protein in the casserole. You can put tempeh or tofu in there also and chop it up. But since we've got beans and rice, which are pre-cooked and in the fridge, I tend to, as a war tax resister, I live under the taxable income level, and I like to keep my food costs down, so I make big pots of beans and rice and have them in the fridge. So it's a way to move that stuff along by putting it in a casserole.
And also you take advantage of any corporate freebies that might come your way.
That's right. But
Okay.
sometimes I also buy the sauce.
Okay.
I'm not that cheap.
Well, what got you involved as a resistor? Have you been resisting long, or?
Really, since the mid-1980s, I was very active doing Central America solidarity work, and I also was aware at the time of the military budget, and during the Reagan years, of course, there was an unprecedented buildup, which has actually driven us into the deficit that we're now experiencing. So I started war tax resisting in the 80s and continue to do so.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Any interesting experiences you can relate to our millions of viewers who are watching Coast to Coast?
Interesting experiences. Well, actually, when I talk about the Central America work, at the time I was working with an organization in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we sponsored a few victims of the Contra War in the U.S. to have surgery to repair wounds. And one situation that came up was a sweet little boy that we had hosted for the surgery, and our office was right in the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and we took him, or I took him a few times for ice cream, which was one of his favorite things. And the boy had a bullet wound that went through his shoulder and another that went through his eye, or the side of his face near his eye, and he didn't look very good. And walking in the Haight, a lot of people would stop and kind of ask, and so I had a really good opportunity to tell people about the Contra War, and also the fact that it was, what they were seeing was, in essence, their tax dollars at work.
I remember a very popular bumper sticker from that era. Your tax dollars pay for torture, rape, and murder in Central America?
Yeah, and they certainly were used for that at that time, and are still used for covert and overt wars. The figures tend to vary. I mean, the government will give you the lowest figures they can on on what actually goes to the military, but they don't count in the interest on the national debt, which during the Reagan years we actually doubled our military spending just in that period of time. So now we're actually paying off, or trying to pay off,
just the interest.
Just the interest from that period. So when you add that on, we come up with figures 50% or more of each American's tax dollar does go for war. That's past, present, and research for future wars,
Right.
R&D. So that's quite a bit of money, and much more than other people in other countries pay.
And I understand that a lot of times military budgets are, I guess they're secret budgets where they have unlimited funding until...
Yeah, it's most of that is classified, unfortunately,
Right.
so we don't get those figures, but there is the black budget that a lot of people have heard about, and goodness knows how much money is being spent. I mean, you mentioned nuclear testing at the beginning. Even though we're not producing or building nuclear weapons per se, we are still building Seawolves, and we've invested still a lot of money in R&D for nuclear weapons.
Now, the Seawolf is the submarine
Right,
that
So, yeah,
probably the most efficient...
It's a delivery system.
Right, killing machine.
Right. So we're still in the nuclear business, and of course you mentioned the tests, the secret tests in Nevada. So all this is still going on. A lot of people ask me, oh, well, we're not in a war now, but
Right.
hey, by the time this program airs, we may in fact be in an active war like the Persian Gulf.
But
So-
don't we need things like the Seawolf to protect us from like the Somalis and stuff?
Well, that's one of those questions where you bait a person who has to define whether they're a pacifist or not. But most people think that we're over-equipped, and have been for quite some time, and I'm certainly of that philosophy. So.
How am I doing with my little corporate taco sauce here?
Hey, you're doing really great.
All right.
We have a casserole dish here if you wanted to put a first thin layer, because we don't want to burn the pan. So,
Okay.
And we're actually going to use this pan for baking.
Okay. Just pour it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
But keep cutting.
Keep cutting. All right.
We want to use all these up. Try not to get any pickle relish in there.
Okay. We'll keep that out. Now, you're affiliated in the local area with a number of organizations?
Yeah. One group that I belong to is called the Washington Area War Tax Resistance Support Group, And we're regional. We cover, Metro D.C., Virginia, Maryland. Actually, we've had some people come up from other parts of Virginia. Every year we do a tax day event on April 15th where we give away money that has been withheld from the military. That money is pooled into an alternative fund, which we call the Washington Area Alternative Fund. Last year we gave away over $5,000 to peace organizations, homeless shelters, etc. So it's a nice little ceremony that we do every April 15th right in front of the IRS.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun. You get a good turnout and stuff?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the hidden cameras are all on us.
Uh-oh.
But
Well,
we try
I'm
to
sure,
we just wave and smile at the cameras and hope that they'll join us someday.
I'm pretty positive that we have a number of people who are employed by the IRS watching the show.
Hey, I hope so,
Why don't
too.
we
Yeah.
kind of wave at them?
Hi.
Okay. Now,
And take down this recipe. It's
take
quite
down the
good.
recipe. It's excellent. Now, where do we go from here?
Okay, we've got
got a
the
little
onion.
pot
We've
here.
got some oil there. Let's see. We've got to get this burner going here. I guess you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
I have a gas range at home, so we've got to get a medium heat on this electric.
Oh, medium heat. Okay. Why don't we just kind of lower that some?
Or high.
Okay.
I mean, we could, as long as we keep stirring, I
Yeah.
guess this will move along, right? And here's some olive oil. Enough to just, get the bottom of the pan, well, you have to do a little
Moist?
swishing here.
Okay.
Here's
Let me
iron
get you a
skillet.
spoon for that, in case you need to.
okay. And then the onions, green peppers, I'll just put those in there. And again, you can put the tofu and tempeh in if you want to increase your protein. But since we are going to have beans and rice in here,
Well, regular
That's optional.
viewers of the show know that we're big fans of tofu and tempeh.
well, those are good things. What's really nice about this is it does move along any surplus beans and rice that you have in your fridge, as long as it's not already, turned into a science project. But, you want to have pre-cooked stuff there. It's just nice to have. And it saves time when you're making the casserole, because all you do is just layer, basically, corn tortillas, beans, rice, stuff that you'd find in burritos, basically. Layer it and bake it like a lasagna with cheese, of course.
Okay.
Today we're going to use hot pepper jack, actually, because I like it a little hotter.
Well,
But you
if
can
it's
use
a,
regular jack. You can even throw some, I wouldn't advise Swiss, but you can throw in any kind of cheese, really, little cheddar, Colby.
Now, this thing here, you've pre-cooked rice and beans.
Right, that's in the fridge. That's
When does
ready
that come
to go.
into? Should we
And
get
it's
that
brown
right now?
rice. You can
And it's
use
brown
any kind of rice, yeah.
Should we start that now?
Well, yeah, you can just pull it. I mean,
Okay.
it's done, so all we have to do is...
Just got to pull it.
Yeah, it's got to be layered. And actually get the tortillas out of there. That's the first layer that we'll
Okay.
put down. I like to use a round casserole dish, but just because they're round tortillas, it's just a thing I have, but you can use really anything. And really, the deeper the casserole dish, the better, because then you can make more,
Sounds great. Well, looking at all the things that we have in the kitchen, I noticed that we have a little sign here that says your telephone tax pays for war. Now,
Right.
when people get their phone bill, when did this tax start being included?
Okay, well, the phone tax, since the Vietnam War has been connected with military spending, the telephone tax is about 3%. It's marked on your phone bill as a federal excise tax, and people have, since the Vietnam War, refused to pay that amount. Sometimes people get in little scrapes with the phone company if they forget to put a note in. You have to put a note really in with each payment saying that you're not going to pay the federal excise tax because of your opposition to war. And then the phone company is supposed to report that to the IRS. Sometimes there's snafus, but basically it works as long as you include that note. Most revenue, obviously the phone bill amount is not going to pay for many wars. Most revenue does come out of income taxes. Really about 2/3 of the federal revenues are from personal and corporate income tax.
Well, I want to ask you some stuff about the military budget, but before we do that, let me bring that up a little higher.
Okay.
Now, the federal budget. You were mentioning earlier that 50% goes into war. Or previous
50
wars,
plus.
past wars, 50% or
50
more?
plus. 30%, and you're looking at DOE, Department of Energy, which you talked about at the beginning, Department of Defense. There's, R&D, just a lot of interest on wars. So there's the current amount is, and you can sort of play with figures. The government certainly does a lot, but we, can safely say about 30% is the current budget, and then the past budget, which would be veterans benefits and a lot of other stuff, is about another 22%. So it's over 50%.
Okay. Well, this cheese here, should I grate it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me do that.
That'll be one of the last layers that we put in.
Okay. So how is that looking there? Pretty good?
Yeah, and it's actually, once you get the vegetables done, since your rice is pre-cooked and your beans, and again, I didn't mention on the beans, these are pre-cooked black beans. You can use pinto beans. Those are my two favorite types to use. Those are pre-cooked, so really the object of this is to get everything kind of,
Easy
cooked
to go.
together.
Cooked together.
The cheese melts, the tortillas are softened up. And the sauce, what makes this a Mexican lasagna or Mexican casserole is that you're using a taco or enchilada sauce, and you're not using a, tomato sauce, which goes in the Italian type cooking.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We have a real interesting video coming up. When we get back, we're going to have, through the magic of television, have this almost ready to go. As a matter of fact, it's going to be all set to eat.
Oh, good.
Now, to let the folks at home know, we layer the beans and the rice.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you let me do that, and you can start on the layering so the folks at home know about it. And
That's good.
why don't you take over from that?
You might have to. Oh, here's another spoon.
There's a spoon there.
That's groovy. And also the beans, you can keep some of the. The beans come in a sauce if you get it in a can, or if you make it, you're going to have a bit of more fluid stuff there, and that's fine because that adds to some of the fluidity, so to speak,
of the meal.
Yeah, some of the moisture that you need to get everything, cooked together. So a lot of it, and I concocted this thing, and I don't really have a written recipe or can't give written amounts, but you just go with the kind of amount of
The best
moisture
recipes,
that you like.
right.
It's to
The best
taste.
food comes from, a pinch of salt or whatever, not
Right.
a tablespoon.
Right.
You want to get that feeling into your cooking, so
Right.
it's got a little bit of soul on it.
Yeah, and this is brown rice, so you want a little
Right.
more, fluid for that. But if it's white rice, that you don't need it. So it's pretty obvious.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next
Black
layer
beans.
is the beans.
Black beans, yeah.
Black
this is gonna
beans.
be, I'm going to just try to glop it out there without getting
Okay.
too much of the.
Well, folks at home,
There you have it.
we're going to be taking a quick video break. Y'all pay attention. When you come back, we're going to have this great meal, Mexican lasagna, all set to go. Pay close attention. Don't pay your war taxes. Don't go away. We'll be right back. See you soon.
I remember the words of Martin Luther King, what will happen, who will save the soul of our country? And I thought about that a lot this past week as I made a decision to divert $1,673 of my tax money directly to the Department of Health and Human Services, asking them to apply it to a violence prevention project here in Washington, D.C., so that at least some of the youth in our city can get the education, the tutoring, the mentoring, the kinds of help that they need to grow up safe in this town. Remarkably, the Department of Health and Human Services did exactly that. They turned over my $1,673 to the organization, and I spoke to their director yesterday, and he's very happy to have it, and it will be very well used. I'm about to deliver to Commissioner Shirley Peterson a letter telling her what I've done, saying I'm not trying to avoid my obligation in terms of my fellow citizens, but I need to ensure that my money goes for nonviolent purposes. I am and have been for many years a conscientious objector, and it seems to me inconsistent for our government to allow conscientious objection to war and then to draft my money and apply it to war.
We're here today at the Justice Department to bear witness that I'm paying this under, that in the past I paid this under protest, and now I want to turn myself in for complicity. When you put that in the mail, It's the same thing as if we are pulling the trigger ourselves in Haiti, El Salvador, Iraq, the people that are dying there. Our weapons, I think, are weapons of the spirit. Human law, international law, logical analysis, moral responsibility, and our obligation to preserve the planet for our children and our children's children. So I protest the criminal policies of this administration that continues a murderous arms race. This very last week in the U.S. Senate, our Democratic senators, not one penny would they reduce the military budget. We needed it for jobs, they said, and weapon systems.
So something smells good. Do you think we're ready to go here?
I think it's ready.
All right. Well, let me get this. Let me get these pan holders here. All right. Ouch. Burned myself. Doggone it. But that's okay.
Looks good.
I have
though.
another hand.
It looks good. Looks done.
Ay, ay, ay. Smells great. Well, I'm starved. Can,
Well, just let it set for a while.
Okay.
Leave it on the counter.
well, I'll enjoy the aroma. Now, you were talking earlier about the tax, the budget, assorted problems that people might have, say when they, they feel bad about maybe paying their taxes, and they want, you mentioned the alternative tax fund, things like that. Is there anything else you might want to talk about?
Yeah, well, there are various ways to be involved in war tax resistance. Everything from sending a simple letter of protest in with your payment in your 1040 form, or you can resist a token amount, $10, $10.40 for the 1040 form, 50%, which is the estimated amount that goes toward the military, or 100%, because any amount that goes into the general treasury, there's 50% plus of that will go to the military. Some people live under the taxable income level. Some people choose to be self-employed to avoid the possibility of the IRS being able to collect from them. That's one of the risks, that if the IRS does find collectible monies, they will go after it. And usually that's a paycheck or a bank account. That's the normal ways that they would go after it.
I noticed behind you we have this bed sheet, Our Tax Dollars Arm the World.
Right.
Because when there's a demonstration, you take that with you?
Yeah, I actually sleep on it also.
You actually sleep on this bed sheet?
Yeah, especially when I go to conferences.
So you're really, committed all the way through.
Oh, yeah, and it gets me through the night.
Our tax dollars arm the world. The U.S., #1 arms supplier in the world.
Yeah, and we've moved into that position with the so-called end of the Cold War, that now we're, instead of having a military economic conversion program that's in any way meaningful and creates jobs, these contractors are still selling and making weapons, and of course those are going to countries all over the world. Mm-hmm. So in fact, we end up fighting the same. We fight soldiers who are brandishing U.S.-made weapons. That happened in the Persian Gulf War. It happened in Somalia. So that's why we continue to resist paying these taxes.
I guess, the corporations, the arms companies, big multi-billion-dollar corporations whose budgets are bigger than, 80% of the countries in the world, they certainly want to sell. I know of Persian Gulf. We were fighting American-made weapons, Somalia, like you mentioned earlier, and I'm sure if there's other hot spots that will appear in the future, I'm sure that those soldiers were probably trained by the U.S. and armed by the U.S.
Yeah.
Now, are we pretty much, has this set long enough? I'm starving.
Well, I think that we could possibly start slicing that up and eating it.
Okay, well, why don't I do that? And what I want you to do is, we have millions of viewers coast to coast. I want you to tell them about tax resistance. And when you get done, we'll be all set to try this.
Okay, sounds like a winner.
Mexican lasagna. All right.
Okay, great. War tax resistance is a tradition that goes back as far as the Boston Tea Party. Henry David Thoreau in the 1800s was famous for speaking about conscience, and his actions of war tax refusal have made the history books. The Vietnam War saw an increase in war tax resistance, and certainly the Reagan-Bush years, when the military built up and to unprecedented levels and now forced us into a deficit. All of these trends have continued the activity of war tax resistance. War tax resistance does involve some risk. It's an act of civil disobedience, and as yet there is no legal, quote-unquote, legal way to do war tax resistance. Many people who are war tax resistors argue that they are, in fact, though, obeying the law because of international law, the Nuremberg Principles, and the fact that every treaty that the U.S. signs is a part of the supreme law of the land, and if we violate those treaties, the U.S. government is therefore violating the laws. So there are many arguments for war tax resistance, and that's just a few of them. There is one way that we hope war tax resistors will be able to come into the tax-paying public, and that is passage of what's called the Peace Tax Fund bill. It's a bill that's been kicking around Congress for quite a few years. It's got sponsors in both the House and the Senate. Mark Hatfield is the prime sponsor in the Senate. Andy Jacobs of Indiana is the prime sponsor in the House of Representatives. There will be a number flashed on a screen that will be an 800 number in Maine, where you'll be able to get an informational packet on war tax resistance as well as information on this legislation, which we hope will pass. The legislation is based on the same kind of First Amendment rights that were incorporated into amendments to the Selective Service Act, which allowed men to do alternative service. The money wouldn't exempt you from paying taxes, but your money would go into a trust fund that would be used for non-military purposes only. So we really want this legislation to pass. You know, get together with local support groups in your town, in your region. There are many. Call the 800 number to find out where they are, and you know, obtain counseling, because there are risks, but there are benefits being true to your conscience as a war tax resistor.
All right. Well, truer words have never been spoken. Here you go. I had a chance to try this while you were speaking, and I would have to say that it's delicious. That major corporate entity that shall go unnamed certainly makes a spicy little dish there. And what I would like to do is, once again, thank you for coming on by. Had a great time.
Okay.
Had a great meal. Bon appetit.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Folks at home, you don't know what you're missing.